going to now is read out a few paragraphs from the first few paragraphs from Lord of the Rings and narrate what's happening so that you get some background and maybe some of you get inspired to read the story. So this story is set in a time much before we existed, and it's obviously a fantasy story. So this didn't actually happen. So there are different places, and the story starts from a place called the Hobbit Land. And this Hobbit Land is a place where hobbits live. Hobbits are creatures very similar to human beings, but they are much shorter, much smaller, and they are much nicer people. And then you've got other kinds of people also in the story. You've got human beings like us, and then you've got dwarves, which are really tiny people, but they are very brave and courageous. Then you've got elves, who are really beautiful, and they are really smart, and they live a very long time. They live for thousands of years. And then you've got some bad people as well, like the orcs, who who destroy all the lands, who kill people, and these are not good people. This starts in the Hobbit land, wherein you have a character named Bilbo Baggins, who is an old man. So let me start reading out. When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Baggend announced, so Baggend is where he lives, announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 111st birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. So Hobbiton is the name of the place where he lives, and within Hobbiton he lives at this place called the Bag End. Bilbo was very rich and very peculiar, and had been the wonder of the Shire for 60 years, ever since his remarkable disappearance and unexpected return. The riches he had brought back from his travels had now become a local legend, and it was popularly believed, whatever the old folk might say, that the hill at Bag End was full of tunnels stuffed with treasure. So Bilbo went on a travel, and then when he returned, he came back with a lot of money, and people believed that below his house he had tunnels that were stuffed full of treasures. And if that was not enough for fame, there was also his prolonged vigor to marvel at. Time wore on, but it seemed to have little effect on Mr. Baggins. So Mr. Baggins was very peculiar because, unlike other people, all of us age, we become old. It seemed like Bilbo Baggins did not age at all. He just remained the same. He did not get old. At 90, he was much the same as at 50. And at 99, they began to call him well preserved, but unchanged would have been nearer the mark. So even at 99 years old, even at 90 years old, he was just like the way he was at 50. There were some that shook their heads and thought this was too much of a good thing. It seemed unfair that anyone should possess, apparently, perpetual youth as well as reputedly inexhaustible wealth. It will have to be paid for, they said. It isn't natural, and trouble will come of it. But so far, trouble had not come. And as Mr. Baggins was generous with his money, most people were willing to forgive him his oddities and his good fortune. Now, because he had a lot of money and he did not get old, you might say that other people started feeling envious. They did not like that one person had so much money and wealth, which is what happens when people have a lot of money, right? Other people who don't have as much money, sometimes they don't like it. And when other people get old and they see someone else who's not getting old, they don't like that as well. He remained on visiting terms with his relatives, except, of course, Sackville Bagginses, and he had many devoted admirers among the hobbits of poor and unimportant families. Now, the reason why the poor and unimportant families liked him was because he shared his wealth with the poor people. But he had no close friends until some of his younger cousins began to grow up. The eldest of these, and Bilbo's favorite, was young Frodo Baggins. When Bilbo was 99, he adopted Frodo as his heir and brought him to live at Bag End, and the hopes of the Sackville Bagginses were finally dashed. So Sackville Bagginses belonged to the same family as Bilbo, and because Bilbo had so much wealth, they thought that maybe after Bilbo passes away, he would pass on his wealth to them. But what Bilbo did was he adopted a kid named Frodo, who was also his cousin. And then after Frodo was adopted by Bilbo Baggins, the Sackville Baggins wouldn't unfortunately get any of the wealth from Bilbo. So Bilbo and Frodo happened to have the same birthday, September 22nd. You had better come and live here, Frodo my lad, said Bilbo one day, and then we can celebrate our birthday parties comfortably together. At that time, Frodo was still in his tweens, as the hobbits call the irresponsible 20s between childhood and coming of age at 33. 12 more years passed. Each year, the Bagginses had given very lively combined birthday parties at Bag End. But now it was understood that something quite exceptional was being planned for that autumn. Bilbo was going to be 111, a rather curious number and a very respectable age for a hobbit. Old Took himself had only reached 130, and Frodo was going to be 33, an important number, date of his coming of age. Tongues began to wag in Hobbiton and Bywater, and rumor of the coming event travelled all over the Shire. The history and character of Mr. Bilbo Baggins became once again the chief topic of conversation, and the older folk suddenly found their reminiscences in welcome demand. So, because Bilbo was going to turn 111, so hobbits apparently live very long lives, and Bilbo was going to turn 111, so he was going to throw a very huge birthday party. And Frodo, whom he had adopted, was going to turn 33, which was considered an important age for the hobbits. So they were going to have a combined party. No one had a more attentive audience than Old Gamgee, commonly known as the Gaffer. He held forth at the Ivy Bush, a small inn on the Bywater Road, and he spoke with some authority, for he had tended the garden at Bag End for 40 years and had helped old Horman in the same job before that. Now that he was himself growing old and stiff in the joints, the job was mainly carried on by his youngest son, Sam Gamgee. Both father and son were on very friendly terms with Bilbo and Frodo. They lived on the hill itself in number 3 Backshot Road, just below Bag End. A very nice, well-spoken, gentle hobbit is Mr. Bilbo, as I've always said, the Gaffer declared, with perfect truth, for Bilbo was very polite to him, calling him Master Hamfast, and consulting him constantly upon the growing of vegetables. In the matter of fruits, especially potatoes, the Gaffer was recognized as the leading authority by all in the neighborhood, including himself. But what about this Frodo that lives with him? Asked old Noakes of Bywater. Baggins is his name, but he's more than half a brandybuck, they say. It beats me why any Baggins of Hobbiton should go looking for a wife away there in Buckland, where folks are so pure. And no wonder they're pure, put in Dandy Twofoot. So what's happening now, if you notice, is the characters are being introduced in the story, and typically this is what happens initially. It starts with, many books start with an event, an interesting event that's happening, and then slowly as the event unfolds, so the event here is the birthday party of Bilbo Baggins, and then you have people talking about his birthday party, and this is where we see different characters being introduced. Now I'm gonna pause there for a second and see if there's anyone who's got anything to say about the way the story is unfolding. Is this something that you think you will like? Yes?
a lot of books, right? They are different. Books are not just fact-based or matter-based. There are stories on fantasies. It's just imagination. It's pure imagination. For example, if I start saying that I imagine a rat actually becoming a minister of the Indian Parliament. So have you ever seen a rat coming into the parliament where all our other ministers sit and being a part of that meeting? No, right? So it's pure play imagination. So it's the imagination that I have, and basis that I create a story, and that story is then translated into a book, and everybody else reads it because it takes them to another world. It transports them to another world. So that's how different books are. Few are fact-based, matter-based, few are fantasy-based. It's all imagination. Few are on different topics, like if you like business, if you like science, math. So there are different genre of books, that you can find, and anything that fits your interest, that fits your, the way you would like to read. Please pick that book as your first book. Anything that you like. If you like geography, then pick a book which speaks about different countries. If you're interested in magic and everything, pick what's better than Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. If you like something in history, then there are so many books that you can pick. So I want you to just develop this habit of book reading. It's immensely important. And once you start reading is when you'll start understanding that language is such a great gift that is given to us. Because of this, we can actually start interpreting everything else. If you start understanding that language which is written in that book and understand the meaning behind those words, you will start to understand everything else around you, right? So I think a quick activity that we can do here, if everyone's okay with it, let's do a story building, okay? Let's just create 2 characters, and I want each of you to contribute to my story, and let's make a beginning and an end to that story, okay? And I think that will be very interesting, because once you start doing story building, then you would want to know other story as well, and that's why you'll go and read more books, yeah? So yeah, I like that smile, Alam. I want us to do a little storytelling here. Okay. So there were 2 friends. Name of the friends were Chotu and Motu. Okay. Chotu and Motu once went to a playground. Chotu wanted to play basketball, but Motu wanted to play football. And they couldn't decide how they go forward. What do they play? So what do you think they did next? Come on, Alam, continue. What do you think they would do next?
They would play each game one by one.
Okay, you narrate it as a story.
They wanted to play every game, both the games, but then each one of them had different choices. So they started fighting, and after some time, Chotu had an idea on his mind that we should play both the games one by one.
But Alam, how would they decide which is the first game that they should play? Then how does the story progress? Tisha, can you add? How do you think they decided which game they wanted to play first? You're on mute, Tisha. Okay, maybe Purnima can do this. Purnima, can you help us?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So let's see what else they can do. So Chotu decided to play one by one both the games. Then they were again fighting which game to go with first. So Motu had an idea, why don't we toss? If if it is a head, then we can play basketball. If it is a tail, then we can play football.
Okay, and then what happens next?
So they quickly got a coin and then they tossed. Chotu won.
And Chotu decided to play basketball. So they start playing basketball. But suddenly, because Motu was not agreeing to what Chotu was saying, Chotu comes and bashes Motu in the game. He just tries to hit him. What does Motu do then, Yatharth? What happens then? You guys are on mute.
Man, after that, I think the mother came and told them not to fight, and then she suggested a better game.
Wow, Yatharth, you just completed the story in 1 minute. The mother comes and she says, you don't have to do this. No, I think, why don't you imagine a little, Yatharth? Let's not get the mother and the character. It's just the two of them.
They
What
just
can
fight,
happen?
and after someone gets hurt, they both say, what's the point of fighting? Let's play a game we both agree. And after they both agree to a game, they play that game, and the rest of their day turns to be nice for them.
That's nice, brilliant, good stuff. So, did you guys now just notice to even create a chain of thought? What do I mean by a chain of thought? I started 2 characters. Alam then went with those 2 characters. Purnima then next picked up, and then Yatharth. It was so difficult to get the consistency in my story. What I imagined Chotu Motu was different than what Alam defined Chotu Motu, and then what Purnima wanted with them and what Yatharth wanted. Right? So all of our thoughts are different. All of the way I think something is different than the way you think, right? So all of these authors who write these books goes through so many such iterations. They go through so many such rounds of thoughts. They go through everyone. They ask them, what if I write in this my story? Can I end it with this? Can I start like this? Can my beginning be this? So it's with a lot of test, a lot of trial that they understand that this story would be good, and I can then henceforth go for a book publication. And then they go and decide to make it a book. So there is a lot of hard work which is put inside when there is a great book made. So all the great books go with a lot of efforts, right? They go with a lot of public opinion. So this is what we call the feedback. Right now we just did one exercise in which now if I ask Anirudh which bit of the story he liked, now that would be a feedback that he would give us on our story, right? And basis this feedback, the book is judged if people have to read this or it's not a good book to read. So these are the different parts of book reading that you need to understand. There's so much more to it. Try and look at book reading in a different lens. Try and understand why you're reading this book, okay? And feedback is so essential. It's important because most of them should like the book. I didn't write the book just because Alam should like it, right? I wrote it because everyone in this class should like it. So this feedback exercise is very important. Anirudh, what is your feedback about our story?
I like the part where Chotu was beating Motu. Like I'm trying to imagine a Chotu guy beating a Motu guy, and he's just dancing. And I'm just trying to imagine what would Motu do. Motu maybe uses all his weight to crush Chotu, but then Chotu would just, run away, and Motu will follow him. Motu will get tired very soon, and then once Motu is tired, Chotu will start beating him up again.
Great. So the whole story would go on, right? Now this kind of story is called a fantasy story. It's called a fictional thing because we all are imagining characters here. We are imagining that there is a person called Chotu, there is a person called Motu. He went to a ground and both of them were trying to play something. So this is pure play imagination, and these are fictional stories. They are not real. I don't know any Chotu, I don't know any Motu. These are the 2 characters I just made up, right? So
now they seem like my friends.
Yeah, now they seem like your friends, right? Because you are creating stories. So whenever you read a book, make those characters your friend. Try and understand what they are doing. And if you were that character, what would you do? Trust me, it's going to be such an enjoyable exercise. It's going to be so much fun when you think you're a part of that book. Yeah. As part of this day's initiative, it's Book Lovers Day today. So as part of this day and the initiative, we would like to create a book club inside Avval, okay, wherein you guys can exchange your stories, your books with your peers here. So there are so many people on Avval, and you can basically exchange your books with them. So we are going to come up with this concept very soon on our Facebook and on our Avval app. If you have not downloaded our app from Google Play Store, then please go ahead and do so. On that, we are going to put up a notification for an Avval book club. And there you can make recommendations as to which book you liked, why you liked. You can give feedback so that your peers here can understand that they should go and read this book. And if you have books, then you can go ahead and exchange that also. Yeah. I hope you're going to pick up a book and you're going to start reading today. Make the characters your friends. Understand the story very well. Understand the words in the story. It's very important. If you don't know the meaning of the words, then there's no point of reading that book. Understand the meaning, and in our vocabulary classes, you're going to make sure that you use those words. The next time I'm in that vocabulary class, I'm going to ask, what are the words you read in your book? What are the new words that you learned this week? And you got to tell me one. Okay? I hope you liked the session. It was a fun, cool session. Didn't want to make it too stretchy and emphasizing on something, but wanted to make it more fun and enjoyable so that you start loving books and not take it very seriously. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your time. See you tomorrow in the other class. Bye-bye.